car crash cases, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys of Hollis, Wright & Couch are here to serve you. With civil trial lawyer Josh Wright from the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch and Alabama's 13 host David Lamb. The attorneys answer your tough legal questions straight ahead.
Hello, I'm David Lamb, and welcome into the attorneys where your tough legal questions get answered tonight by our expert panel. Remember, you can call, text, or email your questions into us 24/7. The goal tonight is to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it most. And we are joined once again by Josh Wright of the firm Hollis, Wright & Couch. Good to see you, sir.
Evening. Hope you're doing well.
Doing well. Our topic tonight is one that even still it is making headlines and leads newscasts just far too often, and that has to do with driving under the influence.
Well, that's right. And, you know, after things like spring break and after New Year's and those types of things, these types of cases seem to pop their heads up. But they also happen throughout the year.
Right.
And we brought Josh Firth from our firm on today. And Josh and I handle a lot of these cases across the state and in the Southeast for that matter. And so when we need an authority on the issue, Josh is a good person to bring and kind of talk about these issues.
Josh, appreciate you being with us. And if you will, got to give us an overview on this issue, just a good launching pad to our discussion tonight.
Well, David, thanks for having me on. And this is an important topic, and like Josh said, not just in the sense of after spring break or New Year's when these types of cases typically come up, but statistics show that inevitably in your lifetime you are going to be involved or know someone personally who is involved in an accident with a drunk driver. In fact, 1 in 3 of us will be involved in an accident involving drunk drivers. Another sobering statistic is that when someone is stopped and arrested for driving under the influence, they've driven drunk approximately 80 times before their first arrest. So this is not something that happens in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It happens every day, every night, across the state, across the country. And it is important to know what your rights are and who's protected under the law, because it is a very nuanced area as well that is not necessarily common sense.
Right. And Josh, been there before, but you're overcoming a little laryngitis.
Yes, yes.
Right? So you're not intentionally trying to sound like Barry White.
That's right, not tonight.
a little deeper voice, but that's fine. Been there and struggled through that. How about, what law is it that protects us if a drunk driver hits us? Well,
Alabama has a fairly well-defined area of the law that will protect an individual that's injured by a drunk driver. It's unique, as Josh mentioned. There's some nuances to it that are important. You need to get yourself to a lawyer that understands the law, because I think it's important. Generally, under general idea of the law, if you're injured in person, property, or means of support due to the intoxication of another party, you have an actionable claim. But there are some real nuances to that general rule that I guess we can kind of flesh out and talk through.
Yeah, I think one of the important things to remember, David, is that the person who is actually intoxicated doesn't have a claim.
Yeah.
So if I go into a bar and I do the drinking and I leave and I hit you on my way home and you're hurt, just because I'm injured, I don't have a claim.
Right.
You have a claim not only against me and my insurance company that covers me, you also have a claim against that bar if you're able to prove, or we as an attorney, the attorneys are able to prove, that that bar served you what's called contrary to the provisions of law. And basically what that amounts to is if they served you knowing you were intoxicated, or if you were visibly intoxicated, they continued to give you drinks and you left, then any person who's injured personally, their property is injured, or for example, you're injured or killed, your wife or child may have a claim as well because they've lost your support. So there are very specific ways the law protects people.
Yeah, and I would just add a couple things. Josh is exactly right. You know, in a typical example of a case that we see all the time, it is a innocent person operating a vehicle by themselves or with someone else on the way home, and they're hit by a drunk driver. The drunk driver, you have a claim against them under what's called common law, which is for negligence and wantonness and intentional conduct. Right. But you also have a claim, as Josh mentioned, against the bar or facility that provided alcohol to the individual. And in your car, You may have your own claim for your own injuries, but as Josh mentioned, your kids could have claims for loss of support of their father or their mother. A spouse may have claims. And it gets even more complicated under circumstances where that person passes away. If somebody, a family is, in the terrible situation where they're killed or have a loved one, excuse me, that was killed in a drunk driving accident, there are family members that are defined under the law that have the right to bring a cause of action for injury for the loss of that individual. So there are some uniquities, if you will, to the law that are important and that you need to understand and know as you kind of work your way through these. Right. There is another setting that generally happens, though we talk about the innocent person injured by a drunk driver. A lot of times, though, David, what we're dealing with is somebody gets intoxicated at a bar, they get in a vehicle, and they have a passenger. The passenger may not recognize how intoxicated that person is, or maybe they do, but they're intoxicated too. As Josh mentioned, and he's exactly correct, the driver of the vehicle who intoxicated himself does not have a cause of action, but the passenger may if he's injured or she is injured in an accident. And so you really need to kind of understand this law. Best thing to do, I think, if you're in the unfortunate circumstance that you're the 1 in 3 or you have a family member or a loved one that is, get to lawyers that understand the concept. And we often say, you don't have to come to our firm just because we do a show on Sunday nights. There are lots of lawyers that do this type of work. Get to somebody who knows what they're doing. It's important. Yeah,
1 in 3 affecting a great many people. Throughout the program, you'll see a number to call, text, and also an email address. That's how you can communicate with us and get your questions to us. Questions already coming in. A question here: if the drunk driver who caused my accident was a teenager, can I still file a claim?
And that's when we've heard oftentimes, unfortunately, as we're all aware, teenage drinking is not an uncommon event. In that case, yes, you do. Under Alabama law, anyone who serves a minor under 21, a cause of action can be brought against them, and they're legally liable for any damage that may occur or that minor may cause. But even if the driver's not a minor, excuse me, then Alabama law still holds that restaurants, private clubs, any place that serves alcohol, it doesn't have to even be selling alcohol. It could be, as long as it is furnished to that person. So you have to think about situations like home parties. If a parent hosts a group of people at their home and they serve alcohol to those people and they leave, whether they're teenagers, whether they're minors, whether they're adults, if they serve it to that person and that person gets intoxicated and they continue to serve them, they leave and cause an accident, it's the exact same situation.
Now you say, you use the word serve. What if it happens at a home and the parents or the adults there are not aware of it?
That becomes a much more difficult situation. There's no real bright line test there. In general, if it's not knowingly given to the person, there's probably not going to be liability on the part of the parent or the owner of the home. If there is a history of the parents leaving access to that alcohol and they know that that child or that person is continually taking from there, there may actually be a cause of action down that road, but the Alabama courts haven't really spoken to that specific issue.
Yeah, and the case law is a little unclear on social hosts. There are some cases that Josh and I deal with that would indicate that a social host has responsibility, especially when a minor is involved. There are also some cases out there that would seem to indicate that there are circumstances where a social host does not have responsibility if you're dealing with an adult. And so, again, get to a lawyer that kind of understands these concepts, this type of law, and that can work through what the legal ramifications are. I do think one thing is important to recognize, though, and that's this. Let's take some examples, because I think they're always helpful to add context to the issue. Take, for example, convenience store, and 4 kids, all underage, pull up. 2 go in, purchase alcohol, come out, provide the alcohol to the other 2 children at a block party or something else. One of the kids that did not go in to get the alcohol is the one that ultimately down the road hurt somebody in a drunk driving accident. Very likely under our law, that convenience store would not be responsible, because the convenience store did not make a direct sale transaction, a direct providing of the alcohol to that child. It was provided to one child who then gave it to another child. The same thing is true in a social host context. I know we've talked a little bit about whether or not a social host would be, if you will, constructively on notice and knowledge of something. If they didn't directly provide it to an individual, it was provided from someone else, they may not be responsible either. So again, good idea always to get with someone that knows what they're talking about in this area.
All right, time for our first break. After the break, a question from someone who got some legal advice from a friend on alcohol-related issues. We'll see if that friend knows what they're talking about. We'll talk about that question coming up after the break. Also, don't forget you can call, text, or email all throughout the show. They're here to offer their expertise and help you solve your legal battles. Contact them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and your questions just might be featured on the show. You can also fan them on Facebook, search Hollis, Wright, and Couch, and on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Much more on this topic after the break. The attorneys will be right back.
I'm Josh Wright with a law firm.
Welcome back into the attorneys discussing alcohol-related injuries. Remember, throughout the program, you could call, text, or email your legal questions in. The goal here is to provide legal counsel when you need it the most. And whenever we went to break, we love getting questions from our viewers, ways for you to get those questions to us. Call, text, or email. A question we have here. I was told that as long as alcohol is not sold to someone, that I could not be held responsible for an injury by someone who got drunk at my house and then got into a fight. True? Not true.
Sure. Not 100% true. The alcohol doesn't necessarily have to be sold to the person in the sense of an actual commercial transaction.
Right.
As long as it's provided or furnished in some way to them. But it generally has to be a direct providing, meaning what we talked about earlier in the show. You get into that constructive knowledge aspect. Generally, and again, we're painting in broad strokes here because it's too big a topic, but in general, it's got to be direct, meaning that person's got to directly give it to them. It's got to be a direct sale, a direct provision. If you have that circumstance, then absolutely you have a claim.
I think that's exactly right. And you know, these are the type of questions we get on a daily basis. I mean, when somebody will call and say, here's the circumstance, what do you think? And we kind of work through it. And, you know, there are a lot of different ways that you can prove these claims from an evidentiary perspective, and that makes this area of the law unique to certain areas of the law, different areas of the law. You know, Josh talked about earlier, and let's kind of put this in context. It's not enough that somebody just consumed alcohol and they were involved in an accident. There are certain things that you have to prove to show that the alcohol actually contributed to the event itself, like the accident. For example, you have to prove what Josh mentioned, contrary to provision of law, which is somebody who is visibly intoxicated. That's a legal term of art. What does that really mean? It means you can use witnesses, forensics like blood alcohol content, habit of a bar, a convenience store, a facility, a social location where somebody consumed alcohol. Those types of things are used to put together a case and to show that somebody was in fact visibly intoxicated. And I'll drill down just a little bit on this. In our cases, the cases that Josh and I handle at our firm, oftentimes what we're doing is we're enrolling experts to assist us from a blood alcohol content perspective. There is a lot of law out there and a lot of science out there on the issue of blood alcohol content. There's a reason these states all range from a 0.08 for an adult being over the limit to a 0.1, because there is a significant amount of research and science that has been done in the area as to what the average person under average circumstances will act like under certain blood alcohol contents. Experts can take that to the next level. And what they will do is they will evaluate a blood alcohol content and figure out at what point is somebody incapable of hiding, for example, a sign of visible intoxication, a slurred speech, stumbling through a bar, inability to communicate at the bar, being forgetful, all things that bartenders and people that serve alcohol are trained to look for. Because the idea is if somebody's visibly intoxicated, you can't provide alcohol to them. That's the way the law works. And it's the way the law works for a reason. It's because the policy to protect citizens on our roadways and in other circumstances is greater than allowing somebody to get another drink. And so experts can be very, very helpful in these cases to prove all the elements that you need to prove with the evidence that you need to prove it to be successful in the case.
So really, a bar must train the bartender, and when it's time to. So that there's some sort of training, I guess, is available there.
Absolutely. The ABC board, particularly here in Alabama, that's the Alabama Beverage Commission, who oversees liquor sales and licensing in Alabama for provision of alcohol, provides training classes, manuals, guidelines, and those are things that if you want to serve alcohol, restaurants, convenience stores, country clubs, any other place that is generally a commercial entity, will most of the time most businesses are good about training their employees on what to look for and the signs to look for, particularly bartenders and things of that nature. But there are very strict guidelines that the ABC board pushes out that they expect those entities to comply with.
Yeah, and you know, we're often hired and retained on behalf of bars to advise them on what they can do to be smart about how they serve alcohol. And it gets the training involved with the responsible bars and restaurants is pretty impressive in many respects. I mean, you have circumstances where you're teaching bartenders to count drinks, to look for the signs of visible intoxication, to have alternative beverage, food, and potential taxis available. Signage can be put up that says things as funny as, you know, you're an idiot if you're driving home drunk because we will provide a taxi for you. I mean, little things go a long way to make sure they're doing it the right way. And another thing I tell you is this: we're not here indicting an industry of those that consume and well, those that sell alcohol. There are a lot of bars that are doing it absolutely the right way, a lot of restaurants, a lot of convenience stores doing it the right way. But for those that aren't, there are laws in place to protect people that are injured, and that's what we're here really talking about today.
And while we're on this topic, a question here from a viewer: can the driver of a vehicle sue the bar for their own intoxication?
No, Alabama is very, very clear on that particular issue, and the way that the two statutes that the two laws we're talking about here, the dram shop law or the dram shop statute, and then the civil damages statute. Civil damages is for minors, dram shop is for everybody else. The dram shop law doesn't protect the intoxicated individual. So they don't allow you to be compensated for going in and essentially contributing to your own injury. If you go in and you continue to drink, that's the conscious decision that you made. Alabama's public policy doesn't protect you, but it's designed to protect everyone else. But if you are injured, your family is protected.
This is a unique area
this
of law.
This is the really interesting part about Alabama. Alabama is a very harsh state in the sense of if you contribute to your own injury even 1% in most areas of the law, you are barred 100% from recovery. It's very strict, very harsh. A lot of states don't have that. Dram shop is unique and very different. If you contribute to your injury and you're injured, if you drink and you're injured, you're not protected. You do lose your recovery or ability to recover. Your family, though, is protected, and that's not necessarily the case in other circumstances. So your children, if you were unable to work, your children, your wife, your family could have a claim against that bar for overservice for the loss of your support. And support is not just your physical presence, it also can be financial as well.
That's unique for sure. Time for our second break, our final segment of the attorneys coming right up. Don't forget, we'd love to hear from you. Still time left to get your question in. You can call, text, or email. You can also find the firm of Hollis, Wright, and Couch on Facebook. Just search the term Hollis, Wright, and Couch. Follow them on Twitter as well. That's Hollis_Wright. Much more on this topic as the attorneys are coming right back.
From all of us at Hollis, Wright, and Couch, we're proud to team up with Alabama's 13 to present the attorneys each Sunday night. Our goal, to answer your tough questions and provide legal support when you need it most. Remember, you can call, text, or email us your legal questions anytime. This week's topic relates to drunk driving and alcohol-related injuries. These types of cases can occur at a bar, private party, or a social club. The victims in these cases are often completely innocent. Here are the facts you need to know. If you're ever involved in one of these cases, get an attorney early. Failure to do so can make your case more difficult and reduce its value. That's because the role of a lawyer is to properly preserve evidence. They should track down receipts, witnesses, and video, and learn what was consumed, how much was consumed, and when the consumption took place. Get experts involved early, taking a person's body weight, height, drinking history, and eating history into account. A toxicologist can assess a person's blood alcohol content at the time of an accident, even if the person's BAC decreased significantly from the time of the accident to the time of the test at the station. Anyone who serves, furnishes, or sells alcohol should follow certain rules, especially if you're holding a social party at your house. Make sure everyone drinking is over 21. Provide the number for a taxi service or other transportation. Never serve someone alcohol that appears drunk. And remind your guests to plan ahead and designate their sober driver. Offer alcohol-free beverages and make sure everyone has a sober designated driver. Sometimes the line between fun and a life-changing accident is slim, so be careful and protect yourself and your guests. If you have an idea for our next show topic, let us know. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis, Wright & Couch want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. We can't guarantee we'll answer every question during the show, but we can guarantee a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13.
Time really flown by tonight. Want to get to a couple more questions with our panel of experts. Josh, a question here from a viewer. What types of insurance do bars and restaurants have?
Go ahead.
And I'll grab that one. The ABC board and Alabama state law requires that liquor liability coverage for a restaurant or a bar be a minimum of $100,000.
Okay.
Now, that's the requirement now. We've actually been lobbying and speaking with the ABC board at length for the last couple of years to attempt to raise that, because almost every time, and it's hard to put a statistic on it, but I'd say at least 9 times out of 10, the damages in these cases are typically catastrophic, far in excess of $100,000. Doesn't even begin to cover what a family has lost or an individual has lost. So we've been lobbying to have those rates raised. However, if it's a commercial entity, a bar, a restaurant, a country club, most businesses have what's called a commercial general liability policy. Those are oftentimes activated because they'll have a liquor liability coverage section in there as well, which typically is far in excess of the $100,000 minimum that the ABC requires. So those are applicable oftentimes. Also, car insurance. If I'm drunk and I hit you, you have a claim against me, my auto insurance will typically cover that claim. If I don't have coverage, your underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage on your own policy may be applicable. So again, this is why it's so important to contact an attorney. There are lots of avenues of recovery, but the public may not know what all of those are. A good attorney is going to know all the different places to hit.
Yep. All right. I think we have time for about one more question. This one that we got in. I was in a car accident with a driver who I am sure was drunk, but the police told me he refused to take a breath test. Can he still be charged, and do I still have a case if he is not?
The answer is yes. You may still have a case, and yes, you can be successful even if he refused to take a breathalyzer. A breathalyzer is just one avenue forensically to prove somebody's intoxication. As we talked about earlier, there are a lot of other ways that it can be done, including through witnesses that were with and around this person that evening, habit of the facility, bar, the convenience store for serving alcohol to somebody that's been intoxicated in the past. There are a lot of different ways that you can prove a case. The key there is get with someone and get with someone early that understands this law and can find the evidence necessary in order to help establish whether or not the person in fact was intoxicated, even if they didn't blow.
Yeah, time's flown by, but time now for our final thoughts.
You know, this is a topic that Josh and I handle, unfortunately, every day in our office. We see cases every week. We have active cases going right now and consistently do this throughout the year. Every 50 minutes, somebody is injured in the country by a drunk driver. If you are in the unfortunate circumstance to be there and be that person, make sure you get with somebody quickly and get help so that you know what your rights are and how to protect yourself.
Right. Josh?
And like we talked about opening the show, this is not just a nationwide problem. This is a local problem. Over 1,000 people in Alabama are killed every single year in alcohol-related injuries. We talked about at the beginning of the show, 1 in 3 people in the U.S. are going to be affected by a drunk driver in some form or fashion in their lifetime. We can't stress how important it is that if you are injured, get with an expert, talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be us, but please contact somebody, because your rights and the recoveries can slip away very quickly, particularly if you're trying to pursue that on your own.
Right. And really a reminder, as you said, that the number 1 in 3 of us are going to be affected. Also responsibility to certainly be smart if we are the one consuming that alcohol. Gentlemen, thanks so much for the time tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Certainly do appreciate it. Good to see you all as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for spending your time with us. And remember that you can call, text, or email your legal questions 24/7. We're going off the air here, but Hollis, Wright, and Couch ready right now still to take your questions. You can also fan them on Facebook. Just search for Hollis, Wright, and Couch. Even follow them on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Appreciate you being with us tonight. Look for you next Sunday night right here on The Attorneys. Have a good night, everybody.